Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea from Game Informer, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. I hope you've been enjoying exploring Hyrule over the past week, as I'm sure that's what pretty much everybody who listens to this podcast has been doing. That said, we have focused our last 3 episodes on Zelda, and I had a whole topic for us to discuss that's completely divorced from Zelda, but then a news explosion happened, so most of this episode will actually be us covering the latest news, and joining me to do all of that is Marcus Stewart. Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited. I'm ready to do some fighting. There's a lot of exciting stuff I'm going to talk to you about. Some fighting, yeah. The gloves are off. We're doing some oh
jeez.
Yeah, maybe some kicking too, if I'm feeling real frisky.
I think you're referring to something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on in the episode, but I know it's almost as if like everyone decided to just, let Zelda have last week. That week is lost to the ages. That is just official Zelda week, because we got the levee bursting with news this week, and just so much stuff. You and I, just to kind of peek behind the curtain here, we were trying to jump on to record this probably within like the last 30 minutes, and just email after email kept hitting my inbox, and I kept having to add stuff. I'm sure more stuff will happen after this episode comes out, or after this episode is recorded, in between then and when it comes out. So apologies if anything hits then, but it's like we got like 2 or 3 weeks worth of news. And the last few weeks have absolutely been Zelda overload. So we're just going to get that aspect of it out of the way early here and start with that. I know, Marcus, you have been very busy with a couple of review games here. So I no expectation here, but have you had a chance to dive into Tears of the Kingdom?
Yeah, I played the bulk of it over the weekend. Mostly on Sunday was pretty much Tears of the Kingdom day. I've put in a good bit of time, but I've also have not yet visited any of the main villages, I guess, or the main phenomenon locate. That's kind of where I'm at, mission wise. We're like, hey, go investigate the 4 phenomenon. I've not done that. I've just kind of been running around, activating a few towers here and there, and just building dumb crap with Ultrahand.
That sounds very much like my early hours, so that checks out. How are you liking it so far?
I'm loving it. It's interesting because it's like I don't have the same sense of magic as I had with Breath of the Wild, just because it's a sequel. You know what we were getting this time, but I am finding a new version of that, I guess, with just Ultrahand of oh man, what can I stick together? How do things interact with each other? That's been the fun that I've had. And I've also, I feel like I'm playing this a little bit more efficiently, in the sense that, even though I just said I haven't gone to do sort of the main stuff quite yet, up to that point, I feel like I have a better idea of what I do want to focus on. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, I just kind of wandered aimlessly and was just whatever I hit along the way, I guess I'll just do that. But I was a lot less focused in Breath of the Wild, where here I'm okay, I mainlined pretty much all of the story stuff. And even now I'm all right, I'm building stuff, I'm looking at stuff, but I still feel like I have an eye. I know what I want to do next. I'm just choosing not to do it, if that makes sense.
That's absolutely what I got out of my first few hours of the game as well, because you're right. It's okay, I've done this before. I know what the song and dance is to open up the world a little bit and be able to make it so that when the time comes, I can go here and not have to worry about crossing the entire map in order to get there.
It's also good because I don't know if you've seen this, but apparently some players have been missing the glider in the beginning, because they actually take a little while to give it to you in this game as compared to the Breath of the Wild. And I saw a really funny story where apparently players have they did the Impa mission where you meet her for the first time without the glider, and then found themselves kind of stuck because that mission requires you to jump from a high vantage point, and then they couldn't without dying, with some exceptions of people found some. But a lot of people are oh, I think Impa gives it to you, right? And then realizing oh no. So I thought that was interesting of because even when I was playing, I was I'm surprised I haven't gotten to paraglider yet, but I'm going to keep mainlining it until I get it, because it seems weird to do anything else until you have it, right? But Yeah, I just thought that was a pretty funny phenomenon that is apparently happening right now.
I mean, there was I went a long time without getting auto build and some other stuff in the game. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can actually miss if you don't like kind of follow the breadcrumbs, at least in the early hours. And yeah, there was a long time before I got like all of the abilities. And ultimately, I mean, full disclosure, I beat the game without getting the like beat the game mission in my thing, because
What?
there was like one thing that uh I don't want to do any spoilers here, but there is one thing where it's like, here is like, you finally get like the mission in your thing that says like, uh, beat this thing. And I like remember in Breath of the Wild when you beat it, like they had that cool moment where like this you defeated Ganon, and it was like destroy Ganon complete.
Right.
I didn't have a mission that told me to like go and beat the final challenge, so I didn't get like a screen or anything cool like that. I just kind of beat the game.
I was gonna say, like, does that count as like sequence breaking?
I don't think so, because like it was a whole different quest line that you need in order to unlock that. So
Interesting.
I just kind of went where I thought made sense for the final sequence when I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready to beat this game. And yeah, that was ultimately how I beat it.
There
I
you
was just
go.
kind of like going in blind. I was like, maybe this looks like maybe a cool area to go, and I didn't think it was actually the final like sequence. I thought it was like something I needed to do to unlock the final sequence, and then like it all the things started going in motion, and I was like, oh, this is the final stuff. Okay. I'm
Congrats.
talking in a lot of vagaries here on purpose, and yeah, trying not to spoil anything for people because it's only been out for a week. We're gonna do, I think, a spoiler cast at some point in the next few weeks to just kind of talk about the story and all the mechanics freely, because last week was extremely spoiler free. This week we've loosened up a little bit, but still keeping it very, very locked down on the spoilers. But what are your favorite things you've seen in the community as far as Tears of the Kingdom is concerned?
Just in passing, I saw a TikTok of someone that made a Trojan horse.
I loved that. I
That
saw
I
that as well.
Yeah, like someone made a giant Trojan horse and then like ascended to get inside of it, and
Yeah.
then just let it sort of like roll down a hill up to a fort or something. Like I think it had a caption that was like, "Ganon's gonna have no idea what's coming,"
Yeah, exactly.
or something. I was like, that's pretty good.
That was very funny.
I've also noticed the weird trend that a lot of the videos of like people experimenting and do like just weird or like awful things involve Koroks.
Oh, I
Like
love the torturing Koroks those
I
videos.
I only recently found out that you could even pick them up with Ultrahands. I thought you could like you couldn't use them on living things, but then I had a situation where I had to move one. I was like, oh, okay, you can mess with them. Okay,
It's because you're
interesting.
grabbing their backpack.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, I had to glue one to a log at one point. But yeah, seeing some of the hilarious slash horrific things that people are doing to those Korra.
I've seen people like attaching rockets to them and like just sending them into orbit basically, or like,
Oh, they're Sid from Toy Story.
oh, 100%. I've seen people like build like a literal catapult and send them flying across Hyrule. I even saw a photo where somebody had crucified a Korok. Seemed very mean.
Can
Uh,
you? I'm wondering. Like, I'm assuming they do this after they got the seed. Because I was wondering, like, if you do it before, does that like break the mission? Like, if you fling them to another part of the map, they just respawn, right? Back
I'm
where they were.
assuming they would. I only interacted with the Koroks when I was uh, actually completing the missions. And some of them, it's very funny how like I'll look at it and be like, see where the like green smoke is that you have to deliver them to, and I'm like, I ain't doing that. I'm leaving. Some of them just seem like, all right, that's going to be more effort than it's worth.
Yeah, I've done a few where it's like, hey, my friend's across the river. I got to get over there, and I'm like, oh, you want me to like build you a whole thing? And like, well, I was on my way to do something, and I didn't know it was going to be all of this. So you're on your own for now. Like, I'll mark you on the map later, but for now, you and your friend are just gonna have to send smoke signals to each other or something. So,
Yeah, it's some of those are maybe a little bit more trouble than they're worth unless you're going for a completionist run.
well,
Uh,
catapult sounds like a good idea. I should build one of those and just
yeah,
fling them
so
over.
basically, yeah, you just attach two like planks, wooden planks, to each other, and then get one of those Zonai devices that turns upright when you hit it, and you put the Korok on the end of the planks, and then when you have the thing go upright, the catapult stands upright and it sends him flying.
Oh, okay.
I also like the skateboarding videos that we've seen where people are attaching the mine carts to a shield and then basically just Tony Hawk grinding down some of the rails.
I've been putting rockets on the bird gliders.
Oh yeah.
Like I used that to get across because I saw like a tower that was really far away, and then I stumbled upon rockets relatively recently, and that has really been a boon for me. And I strapped like 4 of them to the glider, and I was like trying to basically make the best sort of like Green Goblin glider I could. And that thing went so fast. Like I was like Top Gun Maverick trying to go Mach 10 on that thing.
Did you fall off? Because I've had it where like I will attach rockets to like mine carts, or I'll attach it to gliders, and I'll just go flying without the glider.
Okay, no, I've stayed on.
I guess you're just better than me.
Yeah, or it just got stickier feet.
The control sticks are maybe the most useful out of all of the Zonai devices. How you can just like pilot anything or like control anything without having to like rely on like, okay, I need to step right in order to turn the glider the direction I need to go. Like, no, just get the control stick and then you can fly it wherever you want.
I still haven't found those in the wild. I found like a pre-made like Zonai cart randomly that had a control stick, but I still haven't found like the piece, I guess like a la carte basically.
You got to find the Zonai device dispensers, and then you'll start finding different ones because different dispensers have different items in them.
Right, that's what I figured because I was like, okay, I got a bunch of other stuff. I just haven't found, I guess, one that gives me those. But yeah, I'm hoping to find one soon because yeah, that's just makes life easier for obviously steering and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's been fun. Just again, this is the ultimate like I'm finding myself thinking about dumb things I want to try when I'm not playing yet, which I don't know if I felt that since Grand Theft Auto 3 when that came out, where that game was also like such an eye-opening experience of like, wow, you can do anything. And I would sit in like middle school daydreaming like, oh, when I get home, I'm going to try to do this thing and see if it lets me.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. And Tears of the Kingdom does a great job, much in the way Breath of the Wild did, in like recapturing those feelings you had a long time ago and you just assumed were gone forever because you're so like kind of desensitized or jaded by thinking like you've seen everything in gaming, right? Like you've seen everything that gaming has to offer. There's no surprising you anymore. And Tears of the Kingdom kind of does what Breath of the Wild did, and like it's like, nope, you have not. We can still surprise you.
Yeah. Would you say that Tears of the Kingdom does what Breath of the Wild don't?
So let's get to the news, Marcus. The news for Tears of the Kingdom. That's what that was all preamble to the news. That believe it or not, Tears of the Kingdom has sold very, very well over its first weekend. So 3 days, it is the fastest selling Zelda game ever, reaching 10 million copies sold already. That was only the first weekend. I mean, this is not even taking into account the week that has just happened. And, when you take into account that the game was at its cheapest $70 a pop, that means the game has grossed more than $700 million in just 3 days.
Yeah, and also more impressive is that this is the first $70 Nintendo game. So that extra $10 apparently did not slow down sales. People were willing to shell that out.
It's wild because like I was speculating with Kyle last episode, like where is this even gonna land in terms of the sales, and we'll do that in just a second. I want to get your thoughts on that. But 4 million of those 10 million copies were in the Americas, which makes it the fastest selling Nintendo game ever in those territories.
Yeah.
So it's doing well.
Yeah, I did a double take when I saw that because I was thinking like, really, even more so than like, I don't know, even like Wii Sports, like the original Wii Sports, and it's like,
I mean, they couldn't keep up with demand with the Wii Sports, right? Because that was bundled in with the Wii, and the Wii consoles were just hard to find. I don't think they could sell 10 million Wiis when it first launched, because I don't think they had 10 million Wiis at the start anyway, over a 3-day stretch.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
But so here's the exercise that I did with Kyle last week. These numbers are from the end of March, but this is the most recent numbers Nintendo has given us. Sales numbers to crack the top 10, Tears of the Kingdom would need to sell 15.4 million copies to overtake Ring Fit Adventure in the top 10 Switch games in terms of sales. The top selling Switch game of all time is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at about 54 million copies. And then for reference, Breath of the Wild is currently number 4 with about 30 million copies sold, which means Tears of the Kingdom has already sold a third of what Breath of the Wild sold. Where do you think this is going to land? Do you think it's going to beat Ring Fit Adventure at 15.4 million copies? I mean, that seems like a given, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe at 15.41 million. So that's very, very close. That's like 300,000 more, or no, that's less than 300,000 more. That's like less than 30,000 copies to get to New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. I'm assuming you think it's going to beat that as well.
Yes.
Super Mario Party at 19.14 million.
Oh, yeah.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which is still climbing, I would imagine, but it's at 22 million.
Yes.
Okay, now we're getting into some heavy hitters here. Super Mario Odyssey at nearly 26 million.
It's because, like, Mario Odyssey obviously has such a head start.
But it's slowing down, right? Like it was in the subsequent 3 months, it's sold less than 1 million copies.
Okay, I was gonna ask, like, because I know I saw like a story that Mario games overall had picked up because of the movie. So
I mean,
didn't know
they
how
might
much
as
of
well.
that was-
So here's the thing: these numbers are from the end of March, which
Okay.
means it's before the Mario movie came to theaters.
Yeah, because I heard something where, like, oh yeah, Mario games across the board have got like a bit of a shot in the arm in sales.
That would make sense.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Pokemon Sword and Shield at 25.82 million, so just over Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah.
Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. Breath of the Wild, just under 30 million copies.
This one has it's off to such a strong start, and this one has the sort of, like, I guess, goodwill from Breath of the Wild. I mean, all the Zelda games have goodwill, but now that it's like, oh yeah, the sequel to that thing that blew people's minds, and it's arguably better. I'm gonna say yeah. I'm you know what? By the time, I don't know, whenever we consider it's like lifetime or life cycle lens, I'm gonna say yes.
I think it outsells Breath of the Wild.
Only because I think people are gonna buy this game first now, even though it's a sequel. It's still the new one, and you don't necessarily need to play Breath of the Wild to play this one. Yeah, sure. And also because Nintendo sales are so, like, laughable that it's like you may as well just buy the sequel if you're gonna pay that much money anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And also, I mean, it does have the benefit of a massive installed user base from the start, whereas Breath of the Wild, it was a launch title for Switch, so it didn't have that right off the starting line number.
Yeah, also it doesn't have the benefit of those that Wii U audience. That massive Wii U audience is gone. So it's a real
true.
handicap.
There's only one platform that you can get Tears of the Kingdom on. All right, so next up would be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 31 million. So that's about 1 million more than what Breath of the Wild is currently at.
Another million. Man, see, Smash is such an evergreen game. Like, it's always going to be popular.
But it only sold 500,000 in the 3 months prior.
Okay. I'm trying to predict, like, just like what the attitude will be for Tears of the Kingdom in even a year from now. Of, like, does the mechanics, like, does it still feel like as must play as, like, original Breath of the Wild did? Of, like, oh, there's really no open world game quite like this. And, like, I don't, like, Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have that same hook, as cool as Ultrahand is. I mean, maybe it is for some people.
Here's what I think about Ultrahand, though, is it lends itself so well to social media and YouTube clips because of Ultrahand and, like, all the weird stuff that you can do. I think it's going to sell. My prediction is going to end up at number 3, above Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm amending my prediction from I think last time I said number 5, beating out Sword and Shield, but falling short of Breath of the Wild. But these early numbers are so impressive that I'm amending it to say it's going to end up at number 3, which means that it would only fall short of Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is over 42 million, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which, like I said, is over 54 million.
Yeah, I was going to say my cutoff is Animal Crossing.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's my new prediction. It's going to end up number 3 based on these early numbers. Now, of course, like maybe everybody who wanted it already bought it, and we're going to see a massive drop off. But I think that it's going to have a strong subsequent few days after that. That initial. I mean, remember that 10 million number is only people who bought it Friday, Saturday, or Sunday of last week. That's not
yeah,
including people who've gotten it this week. Maybe people were waiting for payday to roll around. Maybe they just hadn't gotten a chance to go to a store if they wanted a physical copy. There are plenty of reasons to believe that that number is only going to keep skyrocketing and it's not going to really slow all that dramatically.
yeah. Some people waiting for that Black Friday $5 discount.
Oh, when Black Friday rolls around, this is the biggest game of the year, and that you have to imagine that a bunch of people are going to be buying this when it comes time for like gift giving occasions.
Exactly. Especially depending on what Nintendo has planned for the holiday, because right now they have nothing. But that can change in an instant, as it often does with them.
Yeah.
um,
And I mean, honestly, that's what we were going to be talking about this week, but we're going to end up talking about it next week, probably, unless something huge hits. And then we're going to keep pushing that down the road.
exactly. Also, real quick, I don't think I've ever wanted to be a company more so than Nintendo of 2023. Because my God, what a role they are on this year between this and the success of the Mario movie and opening the second theme park. Like, they are just rolling in it right now.
It's unbelievable. And I did ask Shigeru Miyamoto what it's like being at Nintendo in this like age of affluence that has existed for the past 6 years, really, ever since the Switch came out. Like
Yeah.
Nintendo has just been on fire.
You ask them how often he dives into his money bin and swims around.
How does it feel to be the jovial Scrooge McDuck? Like, you don't have any of the toxic traits of Scrooge McDuck, but you do have the pit of money, especially now that he's an executive producer of a $1 billion animated film. So, I mean, I'm sure he is seeing more money from that. I think it was Kyle who pointed out that like he probably made more money being an executive producer of the Mario movie than he did of any video game ever.
Yeah, Kyle told me that on a replay episode, and we joked around saying like he's gonna get like the Hollywood fever, and he's gonna stop making games. He's gonna be like, oh, whatever the next Mario we're working on, cancel that. The real money is in film. What have we been wasting our time on all these years? We could have been making billions a long time ago.
Do you think that Shigeru Miyamoto gets a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
Have they ever done it for? They haven't done it for any video game
No, but
designers,
I
right?
feel like he would be the one, right?
I mean, yeah.
Especially
If
now
it's
that he's an executive producer of a $1 billion movie.
they've put like filmmakers on the Walk of Fame. It doesn't necessarily have to be like forward-facing like
Yeah.
performers, right? Like
Does
directors.
Kevin Feige have one? You'd think he would at this point.
I don't know, but I mean, he probably will eventually. But like, does Steven Spielberg or any like Orson Welles, do they have
I
one?
mean, there's musicians and everything on it too. It's not just actors.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, because he's such a behind-the-scenes guy. I mean, even though he's like a public figure, but not in the, you know what I mean? It's like he's not going on stage, or at least not anymore. Like he hasn't going on stage playing games, and if he was, he might be disqualified for that Skyward Sword E3 demo. But
I mean, there are producers and radio hosts and executives that have places or stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So I'm just wondering if he is the one that breaks it down. Like, is he the first like video game person to jump onto the Hollywood Walk of Fame stars?
Yeah, I mean, if not him, if we're going by like industry importance, it's like him or like a Nolan Bushnell or
I mean, it has to be Miyamoto.
Like first and foremost.
If they ever did it, it would be Miyamoto hands down, right? Like he would have to be the first one if they ended up honoring somebody from the games industry.
Yeah, that just sounds weird. I don't know, like just Hollywood and video games, but again, they had musicians, so.
And now he has Hollywood credentials.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess so.
So
yeah, why not?
It makes sense. Maybe that's the excuse that they have to start including some of these game makers.
Does that mean Charles Martinet can get one as the longtime voice of the most iconic video game character in the world?
Nope, but Chris Pratt can. All right, we're gonna move on to the next news piece here. No more Tears of the Kingdom talk for this episode. I don't think. But We used to always kind of surface Pokemon news first, but I don't think we could really do Zelda like that a week after launch. So we're getting to Pokemon news second this episode. And the news is that we have a new 3.0.0 update for Pokemon Home. And the big news from this one is that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are now compatible with Pokemon Home. And if you link your copy of Scarlet or Violet to Pokemon Home, you will get special versions of Sprigatito, Fuecoco, and Quaxley with hidden abilities. And then the other updates are you can convert Pokemon Home points that you earn from having a number of Pokemon in your boxes to League points to in Scarlet and Violet. And then there are other updates like you can see game-specific details about your Pokemon. You can change your Pokemon's moves in Pokemon Home now. And then there are going to be some new challenges and stickers that you can earn. Do you use Pokemon Home at all? Because I think it's an amazing thing to like be able to transfer your Pokemon from one game to another, but I never feel the urge to like bring my Pokemon over.
I mean, Kyle, I don't even play the games, let alone any of the side apps. But
Just
remind me,
Kyle.
Oh, Kyle. Oh, sorry, Brian. Excuse me. Was that a Kyle question? Did I don't know.
I don't know what.
But yes, Brian pretending to be Kyle. No, I have not. But
Okay.
remind me, is Pokemon Home? Is that's not that's different from the bank one, right? Where you can move Pokemon between games.
It's the new version of that, basically.
Okay, which
Pokemon
one is
Bank was on 3DS. This is the Switch version. It's just called Pokemon Home. It's where all your Pokemon can be transferred to and from the various games, and yeah, it just makes it so you can have Pokemon that you wouldn't otherwise have. And they usually add it several months after the game launches to that game because I guess they want everybody to start anew and not like have like Mewtwo right off the bat.
Which one was the lifestyle app where you like brush your teeth and stuff? Pokemon Teeth, whatever they called
Pokemon Teeth, yeah. I don't know. They've released so many. There's also Pokemon Sleep that just got like kind of resurfaced, where it's like, hey, you can sleep with Pikachu, which I did not. That came out wrong.
They just make apps for every individual like activity of your life. We have Pokemon Eat. It just whenever you eat, Pokemon Dance, and in like little AR space in front of the table.
What's next? Pokemon Go that makes you take walks?
Yeah, that'd be dumb.
Yeah, that'd be stupid. Nobody'd play that. But anyway, this update arrives on May 23rd, and yeah, you can start transferring Pokemon to and from Scarlet and Violet, which if you're still playing Scarlet and Violet, that's probably a very cool thing, but I'm probably waiting for the expansions to kind of dive back into that game. So a couple episodes ago, Marcus, I talked about Super Mega Baseball 4, and yesterday the developers put out a blog post detailing all that's new with this entry. First of all, have you heard about this series at all?
I have. I've never played them, but I'm aware.
Do you like any sports game? I know you play wrestling games, but are there any other sports games that really grab your attention?
Not really, because I don't watch sports in real life, and I'm more of an like arcadey sports fan.
Well, this is right up your alley then, probably, because this is more of an arcade-facing baseball game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm aware. I just never thought to give them a chance. Maybe because I can't remember the last baseball game I played. It might have been like Ken Griffey Jr. on Super Nintendo.
That's the best. I love those Ken Griffey Jr. games. I poured so many hours into the N64 one where I figured out how to game the trade logic. So I would start every season as the Mariners because they had Griffey. They had so many great players on the team back then. And then by the end of it, I would have every good player on my team, and I would just be unstoppable. I would just basically go undefeated. I would it would be almost as fun to try and trade for the best players in the game to get them on my team than it would be to actually play the game. But then when I would play the game, I'd be hitting like 6 grand slams a game. It was just a blast.
Yeah, me and my brother and my cousins, when we were really little, we would have basically little tournaments around that game.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's good times. Whatever. Why didn't they bring that back? Just put King Griffey Jr., even though he's retired and I don't even know what he's doing now, but like, let's just put him on a game again.
Well, MLB The Show has had a good relationship with him over the years. They have him in some of like the FMVs that they play before like a career. It'll be like, oh, what's it like starting a major league career? And they'll have Ken Griffey Jr. talking about it. And then they have a retro mode. I don't know if you know about this, but there's a retro mode in MLB The Show where it has kind of like the same perspectives as the old Ken Griffey Jr. games. And then when you do like a play or like hit a home run or something like that, Ken Griffey Jr.'s voice will actually come over and commentate a little bit the way he used to in the SNES games. Like your outfielder will go like do a diving catch, and you'll hear Ken Griffey Jr. go, "Man, what a catch!" the way he
Is it?
used to
Is
in
this,
the old games.
I hope it's still in the like crappy like sound file. Like it just sounds really compressed and.
I think for a while they did have like a pixelated graphics option, but I think the sound is pretty crisp. I don't know if they still have the pixel graphics option. I only played a few rounds of the retro mode when I did the review
Yeah.
earlier this year, but it's a good game, and like the retro mode really does feel like you're playing an old like SNES or Sega Genesis baseball game.
Oh, nice. But he's not in Super Mega Baseball, right? Because that's
I don't know. They haven't announced up to this point. Super Mega Baseball 4 has only had fictional characters, much in the way that the Griffey games did back in the day,
yeah.
up until they got the license. But they did announce that because they're under EA Sports now, they had the resources to get over 200 legends in the game. And the only one I think they've announced so far is David Ortiz. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got Griffey, because like, you know, they said they have legends spread out across various eras, and you can choose like teams by the era of like characters. Like you can mix match basically the characters that they have, the fictional characters, with like the legends from different eras. But yeah, so just to get to the news here, they had a blog post detailing all that's new with this entry, and it's going to have refreshed character designs, including a ton of new heads, hair models, hair colors, body types, and you can use all of those in your custom characters if you want. And then there's a bunch of new animations, 6 new stadiums, and improved user interface. And it comes to Switch and every other major console on June 2nd. So it's coming up pretty fast here, and I'm looking forward to this one. I've never put a ton of time into it. I played a little bit of Super Mega Baseball 2 and 3, but you know, 4 is the one that I'm really planning on diving in head first, basically. Does this sound anything like you would check out?
Uh, probably not. At least not unless I mean, if I was like, if I got a code for it, I'd be like, sure, why not? Again, I haven't played a baseball game in decades, but
What
this
sounds
I
more
would be.
appealing to you, MLB The Show's retro mode or this?
You know, it's funny. I was going to say that I have considered playing the new MLB The Show just because I was really interested in the Negro League stuff that
Mm-hmm.
they added, like the historical mode, and I was like, oh, that actually sounds pretty cool. I might check that out.
It's awesome.
So I guess maybe by extension MLB The Show, but I don't know. Have you played the previous Mega Baseball? Like, are they good games?
They're fun. I've not put a ton of time into 2 or 3, but I did check them both out. It's more of just like, you know, I couldn't devote enough time to it just because I have to check out so many different games. But it's one that I'm really looking forward to playing for, because I had a good time with what I did play, and I love like games that give you a ton of customization options, like especially sports games. Like I used to love going into Triple Play Gold and creating all these characters to make it so like the rosters were up to date and trading. I would read the newspaper in the sports section every single day and look at the transaction wire, and I would update the rosters before like online roster updates were a thing. And
Oh
then I
wow.
would do the same thing for like various, like there was a game I had on PC called Tony La Russa Baseball 2, and it had like a bunch of legends in the game, but you could edit every single player. So I would go through and I would edit every player in the game to be the current roster. And it was it was so tedious. And I always spent more time editing the rosters than I did like playing the game itself, aside from maybe Triple Play Gold, which is I would say my favorite baseball game of all time.
Okay.
But like, yeah, this game seems like it should be right up my alley. So I'm gonna try to play a lot of a lot of Super Mega Baseball 4, and everything I hear about it, it sounds better and better every time the developers release a new thing. And this is the first time they've been developing a game under the full like umbrella of EA Sports. Like EA Sports acquired them, I think, a year after Mega Baseball 3 came out, and now they have like, you know, they've remained largely independent in terms of their development, it sounds like, but now they just have the added resources of Electronic Arts, which, you know, as long as Electronic Arts isn't like, hey, you gotta fill it with microtransactions, it seems like a net win for them.
Now you mentioned they add legends. Did they ever add like fictional baseball players? Like, because then like if you say I can play as Danny Glover's character in Angels in the Outfield,
Or Benny the Jet Rodriguez from Sandlot.
yeah, or they one of the fields is just straight up Gerald's field from Hey Arnold,
I need
then
Arnold and Gerald in my on my team alongside David Ortiz and Ken Griffey Jr.
there's a dangerous lumber mode where every time you hit the ball, you knock someone out.
I mean, I wish that they had all these licenses, but I don't think they have them as of now.
All right. Well, whoever's listening that can make this happen, if you can get like the crossover baseball game, then I will play your game.
I would love Gerald Field as like an unlockable field, and literally any like. Although MLB The Show does have a stadium creator, you could make Gerald Field potentially. They just released a kaiju update for their stadium creator, so you could add kaiju like out in the outfield.
Oh yeah, I want to play as Madonna in a league of their own.
I'm
Let's do
sure
it.
Madonna's likeness is up for grabs.
Pretty cheap, yeah.
Yeah. So here's a complete shifting of gears. This is a story that we've been following for a little bit here, which seems unrelated, but it is related. The last we heard was that a UK regulator group said it would block the Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft. And I'm reading this from Axios's excellent reporting on the subject. The latest news is that the European Union has approved the $69 billion bid that Microsoft has made for Activision Blizzard. But the United States Federal Trade Commission has already sued to block the deal because they're like, yeah, the only way we're going to approve this if we're gonna give you a bunch of requests, and this is conditional upon full compliance of Microsoft to these requests. I don't know what the full list of requests are or what the list is, but the reason that we're talking about this and giving this brief update is because part of the deal is that Microsoft would commit to bringing Call of Duty to Nintendo consoles for 10 years.
Right.
And according to this report, the bid actually expires in July. So like it's coming up here. But if Activision and Microsoft both want to extend the bid, they can. And again, that's from Axios's reporting on the subject, which I think they've been doing about as good of a job as anybody. So kudos to them on reporting on this every step of the way, basically. Do you think this is going to go through?
I'm starting to not care. Either, to be perfectly honest with you, like this saga of like, okay, got to prove
Will they, won't they?
Yeah, this regulator is like, no, thank you, and then we're suing them, being like, oh yeah, well if you give us call, it's like, it's like I have no like horse in this race. You know, it's like I almost find it weird the sort of like cheerleading that has developed around this from like some like I guess Xbox fans or Sony fans that just want to see it fail, not even because of like monopoly concerns, just like take that Xbox, haha. You know, like just this is just like another dumb log on the stupid console war fire that
I love
and
corporations.
yeah, you're like I almost just want it to be over, regardless of the outcome. And it's sounding like it's not going to be over because it was the last like maybe that's changed now, but I remember when the UK first blocked it, I think it was estimated that it could drag on for like maybe upwards of another 3 years, and I was like, oh god, like no, don't say that. Like,
We'll be talking about it finally happening, and Xbox will have a new console out.
right? It's like, will we be alive when
Will we
this
be alive?
wraps up? Like, that's like a real question. Like, will I live to see the end of this thing? So, like, I don't care, Brian. I just
Fair enough.
do you have a? I mean, do you have a prediction? Do you think it's going to go through or not?
I think eventually it is going to go through, and I think the reason for it is that just rich and powerful companies tend to get what they want, regardless of any kind of governmental interference or intervention. Like, if you have enough money, you can push something through.
Yeah, of all the lessons to teach your kids, that is certainly the one that rings most true, you could say. You know,
Yeah.
be honest, don't lie, and rich and powerful companies get what they want every time. Never forget.
Basically. But yeah, I'm kind of with you there where it's like, I just don't feel like I don't care all that much. That's why I'm kind of trying to keep this brief in terms of this subject. And if it happens, it happens, and cool. If it doesn't, I mean, it seems like Microsoft is committed to making it so that like some of the biggest franchises and games continue to appear on multi-platform, but it's more of a matter of just like uh, how, how much is this really going to impact us as players. And I mean, ultimately, we're seeing Starfield. It's only on Xbox and PC. Are we going to start seeing that with other Activision titles that aren't called Call of Duty with like this agreement that Microsoft has in place?
Yeah, and I think also because just as an enthusiast, I own everything, so it's like I'm not losing anything either way.
Yeah.
It's like I'll be able to play all those games somewhere on a thing that I own. So outside of like the only fear of like, okay, this goes through, then down the line something catastrophic happens or the Xbox brand just sinks and then drags all those studios that they own with them.
Yeah.
That's a real concern. But other than that, it's like whatever, man. Just some billion-dollar company is getting richer and has more IPs under their belt.
hmm It would be very wild to have Call of Duty and Elder Scrolls under the same umbrella, though.
I mean, for them,
Yeah,
yeah,
that would
that's a
just
huge
be
get.
a very weird turn of events that all those things would fall underneath the Microsoft umbrella.
Yeah, again, it's I'm just more ambivalent to wings. It's like, okay, then I just play it on my other plastic box that
Honestly,
plays video games.
the biggest thing that I could see happening, this has nothing to do with Nintendo, but the biggest benefit to players that I could see if this does eventually go through is that theoretically that means a lot of Activision games would start showing up on Game Pass.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the only reason I could see like cheerleading this is if you think that as a Game Pass subscriber, you are going to start seeing a lot more benefits from it. I mean, look at all the Xbox first party titles that are on there already. Like it's a huge list, and that's the main reason I think. Aside from all the cool indie games that pop up there, I think that's the main reason to have Game Pass. Is like I didn't have to buy Halo Infinite, I didn't have to buy Gears 5, I didn't have to buy Forza Horizon 5. All those games just were included with my subscription, and if that ends up being the case with more Activision titles, then yeah, that's the reason to cheerlead this deal going through.
Yeah, I would say one thing if I would only want to see this go through strictly to see them pull off the Call of Duty thing. Because when he announced that, they said that the Switch version or I guess any Nintendo version would have feature parity with the Xbox and
hmm
PlayStation ones, and I was like, you sure you want to promise that? Because modern Call of Duties, those things are like 100,000 gigs now, and they do a million things. It's like, can you pull that off on the Switch or really?
Well, that was the UK regulators saying, like, we don't see how the current Nintendo hardware could run Call of Duty in a comparable quality. That was one of their points of contention when they tried to block it.
Yeah, and I was like, I kind of want to see them try because I mean, either they succeed and it's like a technological marvel, or it falls flat and it's kind of funny. But either way, it's like maybe you should just say that you're just breaking Call of Duty and then you just rework it to fit, to perform on the hardware. It doesn't have to. Maybe it does its own thing. They used to do that with the Wii, where the Wii version would sometimes be a completely different game
hmm
than the PlayStation and Xbox version. So I was like, maybe that's what you do for Call of Duty. But they were like, no, it's gonna be all of it.
Or
Warzone, man, we got
maybe
it, man.
maybe Microsoft knows something we don't about what Nintendo's future plans are, because by the time this goes through, we're probably going to be halfway through the next Nintendo console's life cycle.
I was gonna say we're gonna be halfway through our lives.
But yeah, that's all we have on that. A little bit ago, a leaker said that a game called Mortal Kombat 1 was coming to Switch. And
Liar.
I don't know about you, but when I saw that, I thought they meant like the original Mortal Kombat was going to come to the eShop, like maybe like a remastered version or something. But
Right.
now we know what they meant, because yesterday Warner Brothers revealed the next entry in the Mortal Kombat series, and wouldn't you know it, it's called Mortal Kombat 1.
Now hold on, Brian. There's only one way to properly announce a Mortal Kombat game, or like, and I hope this comes through on the mic, but bear with me here. You can edit this to make it tighter if you want. Here we go.
It has begun.
Okay.
Okay. I'm
There's
glad
a
we have
special
done
guest
that.
Shang Tsung stopping by, letting everybody. Now it's officially a new Mortal Kombat. We can talk about it now.
All right. Well, it's essentially a reboot of the series following the events of Mortal Kombat 11. So this is like our second reboot, because Mortal Kombat 9 was a reboot.
Right.
And
It's
now Mortal Kombat 11, at the end of Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath ended up leading directly into what looked like it was going to be a reboot, and sure enough, it is.
yeah, it's weird because I've seen some fans trying to throw semantics about like, well, it's not like a reboot as much of a hard reset as MK9 was, which was the 2011 one that was just called Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know it's like a new timeline that Fire God Liu Kang is, I guess, what we call him now, established, and so it's like, yeah, it is a fresh slate, but I guess it's also a separate timeline. So it's like, does that mean but like, and it's been a while since I've finished, MK11 and the expansion, but like, I don't know if I don't think the other original timeline exists like parallel to this. I think that was just straight up destroyed, or
Yeah, I think so.
right?
Because it ended with, and spoilers for that, but like it ended basically with like an apocalyptic battle, much in the way that Mortal Kombat Armageddon did, which set this table for MK9. So I think it's very much in the same vein as the way Mortal Kombat 9 was a reboot. This is the same way, I think.
Yeah, but regardless of how it works, I am so excited. That reveal trailer was really good.
So bloody. They did it. They
Yeah.
made blood in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, believe it or not, even though they didn't show gameplay, it was all like cinematic. It actually caught me off guard because I didn't think they would do that in a cinematic trailer, like the sort of like fatality stuff. But by God, did they do it? But even before that, just seeing the characters' new looks, I thought for some reason, I got like super pumped with the Katana and Melina section, like seeing them in their little royal carriage. Like, I don't know, just something about that. I was like, oh, that just looks like a cool scene. And, seeing them together, and also like Liu Kang implying that, like, hey, the classic rivalries you remember might not be the same here. Maybe enemies are friends now,
Yeah, we saw Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Like, it looked like they were about to fight, and then they decided to get along. They decided to do a friendship.
But what's weird is that this timeline was handcrafted by Liu Kang himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the idea of like, okay, it's going to be a peaceful timeline, like things should be better. But then in the trailer, when they show Melina, she still has the Tarkatan like face, which would imply that she was still like an experiment of Shang Tsung, who,
or you mean Shao Kahn?
Well, both.
Right?
Shang Tsung did the actual like making her.
Sure.
But like, and again, spoilers for Aftermath, Shang Tsung basically got deleted from existence.
Well, not anymore, because here he comes in the story that they're showing.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing of like, okay, so like Melina, as we know her in general, you would think she wouldn't exist because Liu Kang would probably purge his timeline of his two biggest enemies being, Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung. But it's like, okay, do you think she would just maybe be like normal? Or, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm curious about that. Of like, oh, he kept that the same. Is that like, does he have like some weird sixth sense of humor? Like, nah, you still have to deal with this.
I mean, maybe he was just like, hey, you're alive, but you're now friendly with people instead of like this weird psycho person.
And I won't fix your face.
Yeah, and I won't fix your face. You're stuck with that.
Sister of my girlfriend.
I'm not a plastic surgeon. I'm
an all-powerful.
So just some details on this game. The story mode is back, which I would argue NetherRealm does better than any fighting game developer out there. I mean, any disagreement there?
No, whatsoever. They've set the bar for it. And to me, yeah, no one has touched it.
Yeah, I mean, Tekken has done some cool stuff. Street Fighter 6 looks like it's doing some pretty cool stuff with its single player mode, but I think that NetherRealm is just in a class in itself when it comes to these story modes, whether you're talking the Injustice series or the Mortal Kombat series dating back to MK9. Like, it's just a whole nother level from any other fighting game developer. Then we know several classic fighters are back. We've talked about a few of them here, but in the debut trailer, they confirmed Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Katana, Melina, Johnny Cage, and Shang Tsung, who is a pre-order bonus, I'm led to believe. And in the press release, it said, quote, and many others. So we might have a pretty big roster at launch, actually.
I wonder how many of them are, like, how many will be returning? Again, given the new timeline, it's like, will we see the combat kids show up? Of which I really only want one of them, which is Cassie Cage, who is one of maybe my favorite of, like, the new characters of the recent trilogy. But yeah, but also it opens the doors for a lot of cool new faces, which is, as cool as it's always see the established cast, I'm always most excited to see like, ooh, who do they add to this? Like a new idea, because I think that the recent trilogy maybe had the best batch of new characters they've ever done, personally.
Yeah, they did a good job with it. I just hope that in Liu Kang's new timeline, he recasts Sonya Blade away from Ronda Rousey.
Oh yeah, he like purged her of Ronda
You
Rousey's
have a
soul.
different voice. Melina's face is still the same, but some reason Sonya Blade sounds different.
Hey, he's a God works in mysterious ways.
Yes. But there's also going to be a new feature called Cameo Fighters, and of course it's spelled with a K. But
Yes.
you can use
Elements of power.
you can use a unique roster of partner characters to assist you during matches. So basically, assist trophies for Smash Brothers, or the kind of assist characters like in like the Marvel versus Capcom series. It sounds like.
Yeah, I'm curious because it said unique roster, which to me implies that they won't be playable in the traditional sense. They'll be limited to cameo roles.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, is that how they squeeze in characters that maybe can't fit the like regular roster of like I think of someone like Rain, who like hasn't been in like the launch roster since like MK3.
Yeah.
And I think he came in like the later editions of MK3. I was like, is he just like a cameo character now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Like, I think that that's a cool way to get a lot of like kind of just fan service elements into this game. Like, hey, remember this obscure character? Remember Meat from Mortal Kombat? Was it Deadly Alliance or Armageddon? One of those games.
One of everyone's favorite.
Just like basically a person turned inside out. Just a disgusting character.
It was
but
a dark time for the series.
It was. But I think that a lot of people are actually probably going to be upset when they're like Smash Brothers fans, like when they're like, oh, my favorite character is only an assist trophy. It's not like a full-on character. I think that people are going to maybe get that feeling.
Oh yeah, like it's a double-edged sword for sure. Like I said, if they announce Rain as that's gonna piss a lot of people off because people like Rain. But then it'd be weird if all the cameo characters were just new faces. I would be surprised if they did that. So it's like it's got to be. They pretty much all have to be recognizable ones.
They have to walk a fine line with this, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's going to come down to what the playable launch roster looks like. If it's good enough to be like, I don't mind if this person who hasn't been in a game in decades is like an assist trophy. But then I don't want the Waluigi thing of like, oh, because he's an assist trophy, he can never be on the main roster. That sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very fine line there. So there are 3 editions that they announced. There's the standard edition, which is just the game, and sure enough, it's going to be $70. There's the premium edition, which is the game plus the combat pack, early access to the game 5 days before launch, and then 1,250 dragon crystals, which is the in-game currency. And this was a fun little announcement. The combat pack is going to feature a Johnny Cage skin with the likeness of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, I almost buried the lead there a little bit of like,
Yeah.
Wait, what? You got who? And it's like, is that their way of getting around like just putting Jean-Claude Van Damme as a character?
Well, they had, because I mean, Johnny Cage's original character was modeled after Jean-Claude Van Damme. He was supposed to be the digitized actor, but then he signed on to do the Street Fighter movie and decided to do that instead.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I've always kind of thought it'd be cool if they just did, like, okay, maybe one of his film roles, he's just a guest character like they've done with Terminator and everybody else, but maybe this is like the next best thing.
Yeah, they're actually putting him in the game as the character he was originally supposed to be. I think that's awesome.
Do you think they put him as Johnny Cage, like whatever vision they had of him as Johnny Cage, like that version of him, or is it just straight up like modern day Jean-Claude? I would assume it's like prime Jean-Claude.
I mean, yeah, when they put Rambo in Mortal Kombat 11, they didn't do like current Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I was wondering because like I think
Bloodsport like Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'm in.
But there we go. I was hoping for double team Jean-Claude Van Damme, and
that's all that same era, right?
Dennis Rodman in there with him.
Dennis Rodman is his cameo fighter.
Everyone's favorite forgettable buddy cop movie that also had Mickey Rourke as the bad guy.
Oh my god. So the combat pack also has 6 new playable post-launch characters. You'll get early access to those. And then 5 new cameo fighters, which I think are available at launch. I didn't make a note of that. That's the premium edition, which costs $110. Then there is the collector's edition, again, spelled with a K. And that comes with a bunch of stuff as well. That has everything in the premium plus a 16.5-inch Liu Kang sculpture, an exclusive Liu Kang skin in-game, 3 exclusive art prints, a steel case, and 1,450 additional dragon crystals for a total of 2,700. And I'm trying to bring up the price here. I had it. It is going to cost an undisclosed amount because they did not announce it. Oh wait, no, it's $250. There we go. So yeah, the collector's edition sounds very cool, but also is $250, almost as much as an all new console. I think if you're a Switch owner, that's as much as a new Switch. So have fun with that if you want that. It's coming out on Switch plus all major consoles on September 19th with a beta planned for August. And if you pre-order, as I mentioned before, you get Shang Tsung plus access to the beta. So how did you feel overall about this trailer? Are you fully in?
Yeah, and just to clarify really quick, when you said all major platforms, it's only current gen. It's not coming to PS4 and Xbox One.
Okay.
I know some people were there's a little bit of a mild freak out about that, but yeah, this is the first MK that's going fully current gen.
It's weird because people are freaking out so much about like, oh, there's no like reason to upgrade your system because all the games are coming to Xbox One and PS4. And then when games start coming to only Xbox Series X and PS5, people freak out because, oh, we wanted to keep playing on. It's like, no, we're 3.5 years into this life cycle. It's time to upgrade all the systems to that. And I know that that's not an option for everybody, but like that's just the way that the technology
it has to happen
forward.
eventually.
Yeah. We can't just, all right, when PS5 exists, but every single game is across both generations. Like at a certain point, developers need to start focusing on kind of pushing the tech forward.
Yeah. So just wanted to make sure in case you were on last gen and got your hopes up, just to stomp on those immediately. But yeah, I'm psyched. I'm a gigantic Mortal Kombat fan. It's not only my favorite fighting game series, but it's just one of my favorite video game series in general.
Mm-hmm.
I love 11 for the most part. I'm most excited for the stories. I thought 11's story was maybe the best they'd ever done. Like, it's so much fun. And
I love that
so
entire
wild.
trilogy from 9, 10, and 11. That was so much fun playing those stories.
Yeah, agreed. And, again, with this sort of being a clean slate, that opens a lot of doors for them to do basically whatever they want. So I'm really excited to see what NetherRealm does with that canvas. And I'm also, in addition to the cameo fighter stuff, I want to see what comes back in terms of modes. Like, do we get a new crypt? Because I thought 11's crypt was really cool, like exploring Shang Tsung's island.
Oh,
I
yeah,
thought
that's
was really
right.
fun. Do we get something like a bigger version of that or something completely different? Do they finally go back to bringing back puzzle combat and the kart racer thing? Which I kind of still hold out hope for, honestly, because I like those modes in Deception. But, do we get those back or do we do something different? It's a lot of questions right now. And, thankfully, the game is not far away.
Yeah, like I said earlier, September 19th with a beta in August. So I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of news coming out of the coming months, and hopefully we get a pretty good roster leading up to launch.
Yeah. Also, I'm wondering if they keep the gear stuff. They leaned really big into that in the last one, which I was hit and miss. Like, I was lukewarm on it. Like, I didn't hate it, but I also, I could do without it.
You were Luke Kang.
Say again?
Nothing. Just move on.
Oh, wait. Okay,
you said you were lukewarm. I said you were Luke Kang.
Okay, I thought you were going to say I was Luke Kang because I mentioned the gear, which also works as a terrible pun. But
yeah, I wasn't a fan of the gear stuff in either Injustice or Mortal Kombat 11. I hope that they kind of leave that by the wayside. I know that was kind of a path towards monetization for them, but I hope it wasn't a successful one. I hope they just live off of like the
hope they crash and burn.
I hope they just live off the sales of the game and the post-launch DLC, because that's what I think is the meaningful way to spend your money in these games.
Yeah, Fire God Liu Kang does not shine down on loot. He deleted that from his universe.
I hope he deleted microtransactions from his timeline.
Not in my utopia.
We should be so lucky. But it really looks like we're on a one-way track when it comes to games getting more expensive. We talked about Tears of the Kingdom was coming out at $70 a pop. Even though Nintendo did tell me that the prices would be on a case-by-case basis, not just all AAA games are going to be $70 from here on out. And then we just talked about Mortal Kombat's going to be $70. Several other developers have been doing $70 for a little bit now. The next news piece is actually now it looks like Sega is potentially looking into raising its prices for AAA games.
Hmm.
And this comes to us via Video Game Chronicles reporting on a Sega earnings call. Sega's quote was, in the global marketplace, AAA game titles for consoles have been sold for $59.99 for many years, but titles sold at $69.99 have appeared in the last year. We would like to review the prices of titles that we believe are commensurate with price increases while also keeping an eye on market conditions. So what's your first reaction to this?
The next Sonic Retro Collection is going to be $70.
Well, I mean, that's a month away because we have Sonic Origins Plus in June.
So there you go.
I mean, that's already been announced, I think, as $40 if you don't own the game already. So that at least that one is safe, it sounds like. But
okay.
I mean, it makes sense that these game prices are going up. Like prices on everything else are going up. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, development's not getting any cheaper either.
Yeah, budgets are getting higher, and games have been $60 for a very long time, and it definitely sucks as a consumer who likes to buy these games. I will definitely say that. But I have hope that them saying, while also keeping an eye on market conditions, has some acknowledgement of them saying, like, yeah, well, also everything is very expensive right now, and we want people to still buy our games, because that little $10 bump, it may not sound like a lot, but that is also, if I'm on the edge or like on the fence about a game, that $10 bump could be the deciding factor for me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, $10, that's a meal.
Yeah.
Some places. You're like, I could get this $60 game and like a Big Mac, or I could just get the game. That's a real decision that we have to grapple with every day now.
Do we get a game or do we eat? I hope it doesn't come down to that.
The classic battle.
But yeah, I think that's kind of it's unfortunately inevitable from a consumer perspective, but I think that it's definitely a reality we're going to have to accept going forward, especially as developers continue doing we're just going to jump exclusively to new gen consoles.
Yeah,
because that's kind of like an excuse they could use. Like, remember when we went up from the PS1 to the PS2, all those games went from $40 to $50.
Yeah, and then it happened again when we went to the 360 and PS3 era of jumping to $60, which managed to stick for a long time.
Yeah, and probably longer than it should have, honestly. But
yeah, we were lucky to get away with it as long as we did.
Yeah, I hope that prices eventually come back down, which, history would tell you they don't. But once you kind of open Pandora's box and you have $70 games, that is ultimately when that's just kind of the way forward.
Yeah, we already told you that big corporations get what they want, no matter what. Okay.
But the thing that drives me crazy is when we have these $70 games, and like one of the first companies to do it was 2K. And guess what the game they did it with was NBA 2K, which is one of the most notoriously riddled with microtransaction games out there. So that was kind of tone deaf.
They really read the room on that one.
Yeah, exactly. That first game had an entire playable sequence with Jake from State Farm.
Oh, that's where the bump came from.
They had to license Jake from State Farm.
He's not cheap, I hear.
I'm sure. But
was 2K before Sony? Because Sony was like the first of the console makers to do it.
I think they were simultaneous because it was whenever they went to the new gen consoles, that's when they were like, yep, $70 now. And I think that 2K came out around that same time.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like 2K announced it before Sony did.
Gotcha.
But I don't know.
They let 2K take that bullet first.
But speaking of Sega, we got word earlier this week that Sonic Prime is returning for more episodes on Netflix on July 13th.
Hey!
Did you watch any of the first set of episodes?
I only watched the first one, and I'm bad with watching TV shows, admittedly. But I watched the first one. I was like, okay, this seems like solid. Cool, I guess. Did you like it?
I liked it okay. I would
Where does
rather
it rank in like the pantheon of Sonic animated shows for you?
So the thing for me is like it's very hard. And I know this is the current trend. It's very hard for me to buy into a multiverse story, especially if that's the starting point.
Right.
Like there's no like history. Like we have the history of the games with these characters. Like but they're like in this world where like, all right, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Rouge are all friends and like doing stuff, and then Shadow's kind of like this like frenemy that they have. But it's like I want some adventures with them just in this world before we go into like all these multiversal things. And I know that's the whole conceit of the show is it's a multiversal thing or a shatterversal thing, I think is how they refer to it, because like the universes have shattered. But I don't know. It's weird like seeing like, all right, now this is like a Woodland Critters universe, and
Wait, what?
here's like a pirate universe, and it's like Knuckles is a captain of a pirate ship, and it's not the Knuckles you know. And it's like just
This
at
ain't
this
your
point,
daddy's Knuckles.
at this point, it's just it feels like Mario Party 2, where it's like you go to this one universe and suddenly like Mario's dressed up like a cowboy, and it's like,
Yeah,
why
but like
can't
that's not really different universes. It just feels like just different cosplays of the characters.
it feels that
like,
way? And like that's
yeah.
the one thing I don't like. I think that the show is well made and it's well written, but like I just don't like the core conceit of the show, which is like we're going around to these different universes and all the characters you know and love are there, but they aren't the characters that you know and love.
Yeah, this one has a hat.
Yeah, he wears a hat and he does a little dance when you say his name, and it's like, okay, I guess that's just what we're doing this episode. And
It's like, you could have literally done anything with this.
I hope the next episode has a different character that I like more. And that's, I don't know, it just I don't like that aspect of it, and unfortunately that is like the major part of the show. But that's kind of my overall thoughts on Sonic Prime, and I'll probably watch this second set of episodes, which it feels weird, by the way. There, and maybe this is a little bit soapboxy given like the current climate of like the writer's strike, but it feels weird that Netflix and Sega, to a lesser extent, are kind of dancing around referring to this as a second season. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've completely missed it and that they have referred to it as season 2. But I wonder if this is something to do with how writers and showrunners are paid per season. Because maybe this is a second like half of a season, in that like it makes it so that they can kind of dance around renewing the show for another season and therefore paying people more. Because every time I've seen is like, oh, a second set of episodes, or just that, like the tweet announcing this said was like Sonic Prime returns to Netflix on July 13th, and it's like, oh, not season 2 as most marketing people would tell you. So that's kind of where I'm a little wary on.
Yeah,
So
this is DLC for season 1.
it almost feels like that. So who knows if this is actually circumventing it in any kind of insidious way, or if it's just kind of the way they're referring to it. It might be completely innocuous, and it might just be the way that they're talking about it. But that's just something weird that I've noticed with how they're referring to this set of episodes that is coming out several months after the last season ended.
Yeah,
So,
they're learning the worst lessons of the video game industry. With this, like, hey, we can withhold content that we made already. We can do that and then just release it later.
they're also playing on that same lesson that we've talked about a few times here. Rich and powerful corporations always win.
That's right, Sonic. That's what he's always saying. He's a big corporate guy. And maybe in a different universe. I don't know if you.
Yeah, maybe we'll get into that Shatterverse.
Corporo Sonic. I would like to see that.
But Sonic's the only one that doesn't have his own distinct version in the
Wait,
episodes.
what?
He goes from universe to universe, but it's his friends that are all there.
Wait,
So it's almost like, because it's a different version of Knuckles and Tails and Amy and Rouge.
But
and
the fun of multiverse stories is seeing like different versions of the protagonists. Primarily, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to see Sonic meet another Sonic that's like weird.
it's like Sonic is like kind of like a Nexus character, I guess.
Oh, that's less exciting.
I don't know,
Even-
but there are various versions of Dr. Robotnik, which some of them are fun and other ones are extremely annoying.
One of them should just be Jim Carrey. That would be great.
That would be amazing. I would
Just
be all
live
in.
action Jim Carrey.
But he's basically a cartoon character in the way he acts, so I would be all in on that. Marcus, perfect segue. Speaking of cartoon characters, do you play Powerwash Simulator?
I have played it. I don't play it like regularly, but I've put some time to it.
So yesterday, Future Lab and the Square Enix Collective announced a SpongeBob SquarePants special pack coming to Powerwash Simulator. So we already got to clean up some stuff from Final Fantasy VII. So I guess
The next logical step.
Exactly. I suppose that's what this is. But I got into Powerwash Simulator a little bit when it came to Switch. I tried it on Xbox and I was like, this just feels like a chore. I don't like this. I'd rather do other things.
I can power wash at home.
Yeah, we
which is
have
where
power.
I am playing this.
You could literally say, if your kid is asking for Power Wash Simulator at like a Target, you could say, we have Power Wash at home, and then give them a power washer and say, all right, clean the side of the house.
Yeah, get to work.
But like, I don't know. And then eventually the Switch version came out, and I tried that version just to see if it ran well so I could talk about it on this podcast. And I was like, oh, I'm having more fun with this one, even though it's the exact same game. So I think it took me a little bit to really embrace it. But this version, or this expansion, is going to cost $8, and it'll add a mini campaign featuring 6 new maps: Conch Street, the Bikini Bottom Bus, the Krusty Krab, the Paddy Wagon, and the Invisible Boatmobile and the Murma Lair.
Okay, the invisible boat. That's pretty good.
That is a fantastic. When I saw that, I was like, I'm in.
All right. I assume it's just going to be covered in dirt, and by the time you finish, you can't see it at all.
I would imagine so. That's a great idea. I love that.
Conch Street? That's like the one thing I'm like, is that a recognizable street from SpongeBob? Unless it's in one of the later seasons. I'm like trying to think of like what is on Conch Street?
I don't know. I'm assuming maybe it's just the street where SpongeBob and Patrick and Squidward live, and you clean their houses.
Oh yeah, I guess never knew what the.
Let's see.
Never had a name. Interesting. Or it's just like the generic city shot they always use whenever they need like a wide shot of Bikini Bottom.
Oh, it is. It is the 3 houses. It is where SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward live. So I guess you're going to be cleaning the pineapple, the little stone head, and then Patrick's rock.
Oh, well, today I learned that street has a name.
That's honestly, that before I looked this up, that was the big omission. I was like, why aren't you cleaning SpongeBob's pineapple? So that's really cool, actually. I'm in on Conch Street.
I've been in on Conch Street since 1999. I hope you get. What was that?
We have a soundboard now here on All Things Nintendo.
I was not expecting that. I was like, what just happened? Okay.
But yeah, I'm excited for Conch Street.
Yeah, I hope you get to lift Patrick's rock and get the clean underneath it, because
that would be good. And maybe Patrick's stuck on it. I don't know.
You gotta blow him
just
off.
Power washing Patrick.
Just flesh off.
So that comes out this summer for Switch and every other system that it's on. Going to cost $8. Real quick, because we are going very long on this news, even though that's the entire episode, really. What collaboration would you most like to see with Powerwash Simulator? Like I said, we've got Final Fantasy VII, we got SpongeBob coming. What else?
I've always thought it'd be funny and kind of cool if they partnered with Nintendo and just did Mario Sunshine, and like that was like a sequel to Mario Sunshine in a weird way, like just go around a Delfino Isle and just blow off but it's like you could argue it's a less fun version of that because you don't get to fly around on a talking jetpack unless they let the Power Wash hose talk. Like it's an attachment you can buy. Yeah, it's just a flood attachment, and it's just talking to you the whole time. And you can use it in other levels too. So Flood can talk about Midgar when you're blowing the Final Fantasy stuff away.
God, I would love. I was kind of thinking along the same lines as you. I was thinking just a Nintendo collaboration. Like, give me an R-Wing from Star Fox. Give me Hyrule Castle or Peach's Castle. Give me a Mario Kart. Something like that would be
Twisted
so much
Metal.
fun.
All like the whole roster, just clean all those cars. Sweet Suit's little ice cream truck. It's covered in blood and stuff. You got to clean off.
I think there's a lot of really cool ideas that they could go with this. And imagine if they got the Nintendo license for like the Switch version. That would be a huge get. Like Nintendo has shown that they're willing to collaborate with like smaller indie devs. Like we got Cadence of Hyrule,
right?
We've gotten the Hyrule Warriors games. I know that Omega Force is a bigger developer, but you know we've gotten Mario plus Rabbids from Ubisoft. Like Nintendo has shown Metroid Dread. Nintendo has shown a willingness to license its stuff out to third parties, and I think that would be amazing. Like being able to like I don't know the first level be like, all right, clean Link's Ultrahand creation or something.
Yeah, it's gonna be like clean
a
it's
divine
gonna be clean
beast.
the Nintendo headquarters, the giant boring looking cube office they got.
It would be very funny if the first one was clean this SNES cartridge and it's not a power washer, it's like an air compressor and you have to blow into the cartridge.
Just holding a pair of lips.
Or just revitalize like kind of the microphone functionality of the DS and you have to blow into the controller.
Oh my god, yes. We all got those laying around.
Oh my god! But all right, that's enough of Powerwash Simulator. That's coming out this summer. We're going to move on to Overwatch 2, which I don't know how popular Overwatch 2 is on Switch, but the team over at Blizzard dropped a huge update this week in the form of its 2023 roadmap, and we now have a pretty good idea of what to expect from the next 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, and what not to expect, apparently.
And what not to expect. Yeah. So season 5, which is currently set to start on June 13th, is taking on the theme of mischief and magic, and it has a new limited time event called Quest Watch, plus other new and returning features and modes. And then season 6 is adding a new support hero, a new PvE story missions, and some other returning features like Hero Mastery and Flashpoint. But as you had alluded to, this came with the disappointing news that Blizzard has basically decided to cut bait on the main PvE mode called Hero Missions. Those were announced back in 2019 alongside Overwatch 2, but basically it sounds like the reason Overwatch 1 died on the vine so early, like so shortly after Overwatch 2 was announced, was because they decided to devote too much time to these hero missions. And then they decided that they needed to focus on multiplayer content because the game was dying. So they had a new prioritization, and then they realized they couldn't devote much attention to the hero missions to make it worth releasing anytime soon. And I've got to say, this sucks really bad, considering this is one of the major pushes that Blizzard gave us for why it needed a sequel instead of a patch to Overwatch 1. And like, yeah, Overwatch 2 adds like a lot of small things, and then like the big change from going from 6v6 to 5v5. But like a lot of people were just waiting for the hero missions, and now it sounds like they're not coming at all.
Yeah, oh, that was legitimately the only thing I was interested in. And like, I like Overwatch, and I don't play as much as I used to. But when they announced 2, I was like, okay, maybe that's cool, because everything else is like you said. It's like, oh, this just feels like this just could have been added to the original game. I don't, or at the very least, if this is a sequel, it doesn't need to overwrite the original game.
Yeah, the original
But,
game, it just doesn't exist anymore, which is really, really messed up.
yeah, and now that is essentially died for nothing because the thing that they were focusing on is no longer coming. Though I didn't watch this, so maybe you have a better idea, Brian. But like the thing that is coming, the hero missions, is that I'm trying to figure out how that's different than what was just canceled. Because like from what I remember, the thing that we were promised was like a straight up campaign, right? Like a story driven campaign.
Yeah, you were gonna take control of different characters and
Right.
like hero focused missions. I think this is more along the lines of what we've gotten with some events, where it's like you have a small collection of heroes you can choose from, and you can complete these story missions. At least that's how I'm reading it.
Is
I
it
may
like
be wrong.
is it the equivalent roughly of like a fighting game arcade mode where it's like it's not like a story campaign like we talked about Mortal Kombat, but it's like a hey, if you pick one character and go through the ladder, you get little cutscenes and you get their little story? Is that like the right analogy?
Well, the way that they've done it is it's kind of like you team up with 3 other people, I think. So it's like a team of 4, and you have like 6 or 7 characters to choose from. And then you go through kind of a wave-based survival, and you're fighting like robots and like NPCs. You're not really fighting like other characters, and every once in a while
Right.
like an AI controlled version of like Reaper will show up and you have to take them out, but primarily you're fighting against the Omnics, which are kind of like
The like robot
the
things.
robot characters, yeah, that like aren't really playable. So it's like you'll usually that's how the story missions have gone to this point, but they've always been tied to the seasonal events that they do.
Right.
So I think that
I've
what they're
played
going to do
those.
is they're going to be introducing permanent versions of those, and you can just play them
Uh,
whenever. That's kind of the way I'm reading it. But also on this note, the director of the game, Aaron Keller, did say after this announcement that there will be a PvE focus going forward, but just not in the form of the initially announced hero missions. So those hero missions were originally going to have like skill trees that you could unlock over a long period of time. Like, all right, eventually I'm going to be able to level up this ability on Reinhardt, and now he's much stronger on his charge or whatever within the hero missions, but that's going away. Like the way that they were planning on having kind of a long tail end of like an RPG style skill tree, that's going away completely.
yeah, that's really killed a lot of my enthusiasm. I still have not played like finished Overwatch 2 or like I guess launch Overwatch 2. Like I've only ever played it when it was in the betas.
Okay.
But yeah, I just haven't felt compelled to fire up the final version. I mean, one big reason was that it launched not great. Like it had that really rough launch. I was like, I'll wait till all those problems get sorted out because I'm not like itching to get into it anyway. And then I told myself like, oh, I'll just wait for the single player thing. Like that's the one thing I really want to play. And now that that's gone, it's like, will I ever actually turn this thing on for real?
I
like
think a
I'm
lot of people were in that same boat where it was like a rough launch. And I'll be fully honest here. Like, I loved what I played at launch. Like, I played it prior to, I was reviewing it for us and I gave it a good score. But I have just soured on this game so much. Like, just been like, all right, it's a monetization hellscape now. I feel like completely like repelled from the experience because of the battle pass format. And I understand the whole point of a battle pass is to get you playing constantly, like that you
yeah.
I got to keep playing so I can unlock this thing. But ultimately what it does is if I like miss a week because I'm playing something else, it's like, oh well, I'm not going to make the progress that I need on a battle pass, so I'm just, why bother?
Yeah, it's like the game didn't need it.
Yeah, it
The
was
first
fine
game didn't have
before.
it. Yeah, it's not like this is the first Overwatch and it was like, we've already seen it. The game is super fun and also like kept people coming back without a battle pass and people like the audience was still there. It just felt like, it just felt like a monetary move more like, oh, we're having trouble with engagement and the problem is that we don't have a battle pass and not that the game was more or less sort of abandoned for like the last year and a half of it
Yeah,
being
they took
around.
the wrong lessons from why the player base dropped so sharply. I mean, I stopped playing. It was my daily player. I put over 1,000 hours into Overwatch 1. And the reason I stopped playing wasn't because the game sucked all of a sudden. It was because they stopped adding new stuff and I was just playing the same matches over and over again. It's like they needed new maps, they needed new characters because that's what changes the meta. That's what changes the flow of it. Now they're in there, but they have all this garbage surrounding it. And that's what the biggest problem is.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's sad and also just kind of surprising how how much they dropped the ball with this sequel compared to
Yeah.
how good that first game was and all the goodwill around it. Like I'm not a big multiplayer guy in general. Like it really takes something special to make me one play a multiplayer mode and also stick with it. And Overwatch
Same.
was one of the few that did it. And even though I kind of fell off after a while, I would still check in when like a new character got dropped. And then every time I jumped in, I'm like, oh man, why did I walk away from this for so long? I forgot how much fun this is. And then, you have another sort of like boom period playing it. But yeah, once the characters dried up, I was like, just don't feel like logging in. I would forget about it. And then again, with the sequel, getting rid of the one selling point for me, it's like, well, I guess unless friends really want to play and I feel like hanging out with people, it's like I just don't feel any compulsion to ever fire up Overwatch 2 at this point, at least. And I mean, for the foreseeable future, looking at this roadmap, it's like, there's nothing here that gets me excited.
I would like to fire it up. Maybe I'll try to fire it up a little bit this week just to try to see where the game is at. But I don't play on Switch because, like, I feel like it's going to run better on Xbox or it's going to run better on PlayStation. So,
Yeah, I
like,
keep
that's
forgetting the game's on Switch.
it's kind of like this weird no man's land. But at least they do have cross saves now and cross progress because before it was like, all right, well, if I want to play on Switch, I have to start from scratch. Whereas my Xbox save has over 1,000 hours and all these skins unlocked. At least now all of your progress is cross platform. But real quick to wrap this up, we also got more information about what to expect beyond Season 6, which includes a Roadhog and Sombra rework, a new collaboration event. They had their first collaboration event, I want to say last season, which was a One Punch Man collaboration, and then a new control map, a new tank hero, and a bunch of other stuff. So that's where we're at with Overwatch 2. I'm still rooting for it because I have like Overwatch 1 might be in my top 10 games of all time. It probably is. It almost certainly is if I look at my like top 10 list. I haven't like reconfigured my top 10 list since we did our issue 300 way back in 2018, I think it was. So I would have to reimagine what that list is, but I think Overwatch still probably has a spot on it. And so I'm hoping Overwatch 2 can turn things around. They seem like really they're not really content with just sitting on it. It seems like they're taking player feedback into account, but we'll have to see if they can do it and restore any kind of goodwill enough to get the community back in. Because right now it feels like the community is so cynical and so jaded that they're carrying off of like the successes of Overwatch 1 back in 2016 and like how good that played. and it's
Yeah.
like, all right, well, what are we really bringing to the table now that's going to keep players coming back? And it's not really enough, unfortunately.
Yeah. This is also a bad year for trying to rebuild, 'cause it's been a hell of a year so far
Oh
in
my
terms
god,
of
it's only going to
releases.
get
And
busier. June
yeah, so
looks absurd.
it's like I don't see anything or any reality where I feel like I was like, oh, I guess I won't play Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, or Spider-Man 2, or Star Wars to go play Overwatch 2. So I mean, best of luck to them, you know.
Yeah. So we are going to actually, I think that because this episode's going so long, we're going to hold off on the listener Q&As for another episode. But we have a few more news stories here, and then we're going to wrap up. Um, we've got more bad news.
Ah,
So we got some delays here. First up, Hogwarts Legacy, which came out on other consoles in February, it got delayed on Switch again. It was originally supposed to come out in July, but now it's not planned to come out until November.
is that a cloud game or is that straight up cartridge?
It has to be straight up like local game if they're delaying it this much. But then again, Dying Light 2, where is it on Switch? That was supposed to come out the same day.
Oh, I forgot about that. That still hasn't come out, right?
Just games keep getting delayed, like, and then Marvel's Midnight Suns got canceled for Switch. That was a couple weeks ago that we got that news. So it's like we're getting some. I mean, I think this might be kind of like the swan song for the Switch, right?
I guess for third parties it seems. Marvel Midnight Sun sucks. That would be a
That
fantastic
would be
handheld
so good
game.
on Switch.
Yeah.
And then the big story here, at least in my eyes, is Hollow Knight Silksong. That was planned to come out the first half of this year. Microsoft kind of broke that news last Summer Game Fest, saying that all these games in this are scheduled to come out.
It really hasn't panned out, has it?
No,
that
no,
whole
no, no, no,
initiative.
no, no.
Yeah.
But then they confirmed it, and that was planned to come out the first half of this year. The team put out a statement saying they wanted a bit more time because, quote, it's gotten quite big. I'm assuming that one stings more for you, right?
Yeah, I love that first game. Like everyone else, I can't wait for Silksong. In a way, though, it's like it stings, but not as much because I guess because it didn't have a concrete date, so it wasn't like I was like counting down the days to like, oh, here it comes. And maybe I'm just so used to that game being or feeling so far away that it's just kind of like, yeah, that sounds right. You see, you go like, sure, why not? If it results in a better game, whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those bummer announcements, but ultimately it's like, all right, well, do what you got to do to make it a good game, and they did a great game the first time around, so I guess we just have to trust them at this point that this one's going to be awesome too. So we've got some announcements here, Marcus, and we're going to wrap up with
Bad
some
news too.
good news, hopefully.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hopefully you're excited about some of these. A fun little game announcement from the folks over at Atari. They've kind of been on a roll lately.
Yeah, it's weird to say about Atari.
It is. They had the Atari 50 collection. They've had a couple of other game releases that have either been well received within the community or well received by critics. But this is a cool little story because it started out as an Atari 2600 homebrew game a couple years ago, and then Atari was like, "Hey, do you want to come make it as an official game?" And it's a game called Mr. Run and Jump. And it's a modernized version of the original Atari 2600 homebrew game from a couple years ago. And it's basically like this difficult neon colored platformer with like an emphasis on speed running and getting through the levels like smoothly and efficiently. And according to the press release, you can expect more than 30 hours of content when you consider like all the modes, like there's like time trials and story and everything. And there's like unique enemies and environments, different worlds. And then I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but it does look really smooth. And I'm heartened by the press release touting the precise controls because based on the launch trailer, it looks like the kind of game you're going to need those controls for.
Yeah,
So,
I watched that trailer and it looks pretty cool.
yeah, I don't know how much the aesthetic really appeals to me, but overall, like it looks like it's going to be a fun game, almost kind of playing to that like super difficult platforming genre that like what is it? Games like Love, I think, is like one of the games that's on Switch that I really had a good time with. There's like a trilogy of games from those same developers. Oh God, what are the other ones called?
Is this the first new game that's coming to the Atari VCS? I haven't kept up with like that library.
It is
but
coming to the Atari VCS, but
when I saw that, I was like, huh.
I mean, all of Atari's games have come to the VCS as well. Like all like the
Like,
reimagined games that they've put out.
like say, is the 50th collection on that thing?
I know it was originally scheduled to, but I think it was delayed at like the last second for VCS, and I don't know if it ever did come out.
Man, it seems like that would be the one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess you got to prioritize like where people actually play video games, which unfortunately is not the VCS. But anyway, Mr. Run and Jump is set to come out sometime in 2023. We also got an announcement from Annapurna that its 2021 PlayStation and PC game Maquette is coming to Switch next week. So that is a first-person puzzle game where you navigate MC Escher style puzzles to experience the life cycle of a relationship between two characters named Kenzie and Michael. And wouldn't you know it, Kenzie is played by Bryce Dallas Howard of Jurassic Park fame, also, the director of some of the best episodes of The Mandalorian. And Michael is played by Seth Gable from Fringe and Nip Tuck. I'm not familiar with him. But Ben Reeves reviewed it for us back in 2021. He gave it a 7.75, but I know a lot of people were really high on it back then. So it seems like it's going to be a really cool addition, and it comes to Switch on May 25th. So just next week. Any interest in that?
I've played Maquette. I want to go back to it because I played it at launch and I hit like a hard wall with one of the kind of early puzzles too, where I just could not progress and could not figure out what to do. I remember I was talking to Ben Reeves about it at the time because he reviewed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been wanting to go back and give it another shot. So, Switch sounds like a great platform from that game. I would like to get back at it. I feel like I didn't really give it as much of a fair shake as I would like to. Is it? Because remember they announced it was also coming to Xbox too? Is that the same day or is that still like up in the air? Because I remember they announced both of those versions at the same time.
I mean, the press release that I got only said Switch, and it wasn't from Nintendo. It was from Annapurna, so I'm assuming it's not coming to Switch that same day? Or
Oh, you mean
Xbox
Xbox
that same day?
Oh,
Sorry, I'm
interesting.
trying to look through my inbox here, and let's see. No, it just says Annapurna Interactive's Maquette is coming to Switch.
Oh, weird.
It does not say anything about Xbox just yet.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. So that is next week. Also next week is the final news item that we are going to talk about this episode. It is the case of the Golden Idol, which hit PC last year, and it's been stuck on just that platform ever since. But the game tasks you with solving a decade-spanning mystery involving 11 interconnected deaths, and each scenario gives you static scenes, and you need to look at the environment to find clues about the deaths, the victims, and then the order in which the events happened. And then there's also the Spider of Lanka expansion, which adds 3 more cases. And then the Switch version includes UI improvements to make it play better with controllers. You're a fan of this game, right?
Oh, yeah. I finished it earlier this year. Just from all the goodwill, especially from former editor Jill Grote. It's been singing its praises left and right.
It's our go-to indie expert back in the day, and now she has the Indie Informer that you can check out if you want her indie coverage.
But yeah, it's super good. I really like this game. It's one of those games that make you feel real smart, but like in an earned way. You know what I mean? I think the puzzle structure is really unique. The art style is like intentionally kind of hideous, but in like an alluring way. Everyone just looks weird, and I like it. And also the soundtrack is like maybe better you would expect it for like essentially what's a point and click game. But yeah, Switch is the perfect platform for this. It's cool to see it in front of like a bigger audience. I'm assuming you haven't played it yet, Brian?
I have not. Is it kind of like Ace Attorney, or is it like when you're inspecting like the crime scenes, or is it something different?
Even though I haven't played it, I've heard a lot of people compare it to Return of the Obra
Okay, I've not played that either.
Okay. But like, yeah, like you explained some of the premise where it's like, it's more like it's like static scenes and you're jumping from scene to scene and every scene has like interactable objects. And there's like a paragraph that is essentially the solution of like, okay, here's text with some blanks, and you're basically trying to fill in the blanks of like, blank died because blank got blanked at blank. And you're basically trying to...
I hate when I get blanked at blanked by blanked.
You don't want it to happen. And you're basically trying to fill in those blanks by inspecting the clues, and the blanks can be people's names, or you'll see a character, but like I don't know who that is. I need to figure out who this is, because then that'll like help me figure out how they're related to like another character. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And you're
okay.
like, okay, this is Steve Jones. Okay, so I know about Steve Jones. So if he's Steve Jones, then this guy has to be this guy because of maybe they're doing something that sort of connects the dots. And then also figuring out, okay, how did they die? When did they die? And who killed them? And like I said, it's about every time you click an object, it gives you a word, whether it's the name of the object or the name of a person or whatever. And you have like a database of words, and that's what you use to fill in the blanks. And as you sort of like collect those words, and then you're inspecting environmental cues that sort of help you piece together what's going on in the scene, because all the scenes are like out of context. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You'll just see like, oh, this person is like on fire, and everyone is like freaking out around him that he's on fire. And then in the next room, you see a person with like the golden idol, which is like pretty much the center of the game, like the statue. And he's like, it looks like he's using it to blow another guy like out of the room, like he's just like flying. And you're just like, what is happening here? And you're just trying to figure out like, okay, I know everyone in the scene. Okay, here's why this guy is on fire suddenly. It's cool. It's a little tough to explain, but it's a really well made game, and also the story is pretty wild, and it's a very memorable game. And they had the expansion that came out recently, which is also coming to Switch the same day. It's called The Spiders of Lanka,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, but it's like a prequel to the main game, so you can actually play it first if you want to. But it's like 3 additional cases that set up the main story.
Awesome. Well, and that almost feels like a kind of preemptive eShop gem of the week for this episode because it doesn't come out until next week. But that's one to keep on your radar if you haven't heard of it. Like, I mean, I had not even heard of it before this news broke that it was coming to Switch.
Yeah, it's cool, and I think it did pretty well last year in terms of like critical reception. Like I know it walked away with some awards and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I did see that it was an award-winning game, so yeah, that's one that I'm going to check out when it comes out. That's all the news that we have, but we did, and we're going to skip the primary part of the listener Q&A because we went really long on the news. I hope everybody enjoyed kind of the breakdown of all the news that hit this week because it was a lot. And then I know some of that stuff, like the Hollow Knight stuff, hit last week, which we ended up focusing purely on Zelda last week, but I wanted to get caught up on all that stuff. But we do have one question that while you're on here, because you've done some reporting on this game, we wanted to talk about here. This is from Derek over on the Game Informer community Discord. And Derek says, unless I missed something, I find it so interesting how people seemingly forgot about Little Devil Inside. I don't remember seeing a cancellation for it, but it was announced at the PS5 reveal and has essentially gone silent for over a year. I'd love to try it based on what we saw, but clearly something is going on in-house for the game to be that silent. So Marcus, first of all, you liked what you've seen of Little Devil Inside, right?
Oh yeah, it's up there as one of my most anticipated indie games.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do you have any sense of like what's going on here?
None. It's funny because at the beginning of this year, like the first feature I wrote for 2023 was 7 games I want to see more of in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
and Little Devil Inside is on that list because yeah, like the reader mentioned, the last time they really brought it out was in October of 2021 for a state of play. And yeah, it went all of last year with no updates, but it's been doing that since it was announced in 2020. As like I said, it was announced at the PS5 reveal, and it's gone through long stretches of silence. I don't think NeoStream has ever, at least that I'm aware of or remember, given like any reasons for any delays because they've never really given dates for that game either. You know, so I almost hesitate to call it delay. They've just kind of bring it out and say like we're still making this, but they've never like tacked a release window on it. You know?
Yeah, let me see if I can find what's the developer name?
Oh god,
It's NeoStream.
NeoStream.
I'm gonna see if NeoStream has a Twitter and what they've been saying.
To find out, we cancel this. Sorry, guys.
Okay, there's actually a little Devil Inside. I found a Little Devil Inside Twitter account called Project LDI, And it has its last tweet was December of 2017, so that's not promising.
Yeah, I was going to also point out that this game's actually been in development much longer than when a lot of people first saw it in 2020, because I believe it was a Kickstarter game originally.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here because there's really no information anywhere.
Yeah, I think they're just it's one of those projects where, kind of like Hollow Knight Silksong, where they're like, we'll tell you when we're ready. You know what I mean? Like, it's done when it's done. Until then, we're going to keep our heads down, and when we have something to show, we'll show it. And, as of now, the last time was 2021. But I have a gut feeling it'll pop up this summer, either at the Sony thing next week or at one of the other showcases, like, because it's coming to, I think like everything.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I'm seeing PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Switch.
Yeah, I think it's
scrolling-
mostly only shown up at Sony stuff because it was at that reveal. So that would be the best bet, is the not even state of play, the PlayStation Showcase you're doing next week. But I don't know. I could see it appearing at Summer Games. I feel like it's gonna show up sometime soon.
You'd hope so. Their last video on their official YouTube was 2 years ago, which was them recording the soundtrack, it looks like. But like they don't put out a ton of videos. It was like 2 years ago. Then there was one from a year prior to that. And then there was one from 2 years prior to that. And then the first video was 8 years ago where they were like announcing the game.
Yeah. Like I said, it's one of those projects that pops its head up every now and then just to remind you that it exists, and then you don't hear from it for like a year and a half.
Let's see what their Facebook has to say, because that is their only thing they link to. All right, so the last post on their Facebook was from June 19th, 2020. So the answer is nobody knows, because they don't tell us anything. But I know you're excited for this game, and it sounds like Derek is very excited for it as well. There's a lot of enthusiasm surrounding this. So hopefully we do get something during Summer Game Fest, as you're predicting here.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be one of those games where release date just comes out of nowhere, and it's like sooner than you think. They're like, oh, it's coming out like 2 months from now or next month. And you're like, oh, okay, this is just here now suddenly.
I sure hope so, because it's a very intriguing game, and it's something that a lot of people are really looking forward to. So hopefully you're right and we hear something about it in the next month or two, because that's just something that feels long overdue at this point.
For sure. Yeah.
But Marcus, we're going to wrap up there because, again, we've gone long on the news. We're almost at an hour 45 here.
Is this the longest episode ever?
No, we've had some that go past 2 hours, I think, and those are the jam-packed, usually like Nintendo Directs and stuff like that happen alongside other big things that are going on.
Right.
But yeah, it's the longest news segment by a long shot. But thank you so much for joining me, Marcus. This has been a great breakdown, great rundown of all the news.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for scaring me with your soundboard as well.
All right. Thank you so much to everyone for listening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, throw All Things Nintendo a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. If you want to get any questions or comments in, you can get in touch with me at allthingsnintendo@gameinformer.com or hit me up on Instagram at Brian P. Shea. And then you can always join the Game Informer community Discord. We're going to be doing a Q&A episode very soon. And joining that is a perk for subscribing to our Twitch channel, even just for 1 month. Getting us questions on the Discord is one of the best ways to go, but you can also reach out in those other methods as well. Marcus, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at MarcusStewart7, which is the number 7.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time.